Hello, everyone, and welcome to another talk of the series on creative confidence, which I'm doing in collaboration with Right Aligned. I'm Teresa, and some of you might know me already. I'm a brand consultant and designer at my own studio and also full-time head of design at the Financial Times. I'd just like to preface this talk with mentioning why I'm doing this. Creativity is a human trait, and as such, we all have it. But what we do lack sometimes is the confidence to name it, use it, and play with it. Whether it's because of imposter syndrome, being an introvert, or simply doing a non-creative job, I want to help others come to terms with their own creative power. So I've connected with people I know in the industry who can share their experiences and let us in their creative world. My guest today is Lisa Shehan, 2D and mostly 3D artist and illustrator, most known as Asilo. Lisa has award-winning work and is a prolific collaborator with very well-known media brands such as The Guardian, Women's Health, and Financial Times, where we both met. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you so much for doing this. Can you tell us a bit about your career and what led you to where you are now?
Yeah, okay. So as you said, we met at the FT. If you go way back, I did a degree in illustration at Kingston Uni, and when I left, I just wanted to get a job, actually, not being an illustrator. So I decided to become a graphic designer, not knowing much about graphic design, but you kind of bluff your way into it. So I started at the FT about 22 years ago now. It was my second proper job. So I started there, and then I was in charge of doing various different things, the bits of marketing, some covers, awards, what else? Doing a bit of everything. And then I started to commission covers for the Investors Chronicle and the Banker, which their style at the time was CG artists mainly. So I was commissioning CGI artists to do the covers, and then through the years I started to think I wish I could do that, because I want to tweak it and I can't, because they were it's not like Photoshop and you can't just tweak it a little bit. So probably 6 years ago I started learning Cinema 4D within the FT, in a mind to do the covers myself for the Banker magazine. So I started doing those myself about 6 years ago. They weren't very good then, 6 years ago, but it was good to have training on the real brief, still learning at the same time. So I did that, and then carried on doing that, and then started doing freelance work on the side as well. But my work still wasn't up to scratch, because the software is very intense, and there's some really great people out there, and it's hard, to be honest, to be as good as them. But there are no women doing it, strangely. Well, not many anyway. So I had a bit of a head start to being a woman doing this, which is good. And then about it's hard to know with COVID. Then I got made redundant from the FT about 2 Christmases ago, and then went fully freelance at that point. So since then I've been doing the covers for The Guardian, for The Observer, Wired, Italy, Europe, R1 here. I don't know, loads of different covers. It's hard to remember all of them, and Saatchi and all sorts. So it's really taken off, but it has been, I think, helped due to the fact I was an art director for so long, on working on the other side. So I was the commissioner at one point, and then to be working as the artist, it's almost like I feel like a 20 years experience at the FT wasn't wasted. So I had a good art direction skills, and all the other skills that came with the branding and everything else. So that's how I did the switch from graphic design to illustrator, really.
Amazing. I was going to say, you also done like children's books as well, because you've done so I guess like storytelling is kind of like part of what you do so well, and that's so important with illustration. And I guess with the CG look as well and feel, sometimes what you lack is that like level of storytelling, which your illustrations are really strong on. And so it's just fascinating to see that journey and to see like where it took you. And so can you tell us when you first like realized that you were creative?
Gosh, I think when I was a kid, I was always making stuff. Not so much at home, it was more when I was bored. So I put probably, you know, 5 or 6. I remember, this is really cheesy, I went to, my nan used to take me to bingo every weekend with her and her friends.
Oh.
I had to sit in silence. And when you're 6 or 7, you have to sit there in silence. It's a bit boring. So I used to make things out of the napkins and draw on, do you know what I mean? Making all sorts of weird stuff. So I think at that point, that's what I did, sort of thing. So, and then it was just a natural progression to do A-level art, and then well, GCSE art, A-level art, and then foundation art, and then the degree. And I think that's why I went. So I did my degree when you do your degree when you're 20 or something, and then I started working at the FT, and I always felt like I'd moved away from my roots, and I think that was the reason why I went back and did an MA in children's book illustration, because I always felt like, hang on a minute, I did a degree in illustration and I'm doing graphic design, and it's not, sometimes quite loosely, it's not really graphic design, but you always have that, I haven't done what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think probably about 10 years ago was when I actually thought, right, I need to get back into being creative, I think, in that way.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting as well to hear that, because obviously that's all, would you say that like confidence and building up your creative confidence has like played a part in that move? And you know, because you obviously whilst you were at the FT, you started freelancing, things started to, you know, picking up. How was there anything else that also like contributed to building up that creative confidence?
I don't know really. I kind of thought, actually, I'm quite good at this. You know, you're doing something, and it's, I've never really been a graphic designer. So ask me what a font is, and I have no idea. So all the jobs I had at the FT were all picture based, really. So it'd be a cover design, or the type that had to be turned into an image. So there's the image side was always my thing. And I think when I started doing them properly in, you know, for freelance, actually I thought, actually I'm pretty good at this, and people actually really like it. So I think the feedback you get, you know, I used to get the emails that said, oh, you know, this is great. I didn't used to get any changes either. And working at the FT, you get quite a few rounds of changes. But these people were like, love it, job done. And I just thought, oh, this is, you know, it actually builds your confidence, thinking I must be doing this right. Because everyone loves it, and then they pass your name around. So that's another thing that builds your confidence, is you work for one person, and then they pass your name on to someone else in the department, and before you know it, I mean, this month I've done the Witch, you know, the Witch magazine covers. I've done the Witch Money, the Witch Main magazine, and the Witch Computing, and they all have the same deadline. So doing 3 in 1 month was quite hard, but they all passed, you know, they all think, right, we've got someone. So that really builds your confidence, and, you know, makes you think, I can do this. And also on a personal level, I think I had to build my confidence, because I was at the FT for 20 years, and I did feel like I needed to do something else. And it was just lucky that I'd done it before I got made redundant, otherwise that could have been difficult. But that gave me the boost to think, right, I've got this opportunity to really go for it. And at that point, you kind of put everything into it to think that this, you know, I don't have a job anymore, so this is it, it has to work. Yeah, so it worked. And I got divorced at the same time, which didn't help. so I had extra effort.
It's funny how this whole confidence thing is something so kind of holistic, isn't it? It kind of starts sometimes in one area of your life, and you kind of like start building it up, and then, you know, it just trickles onto every aspect of yourself, in a sense. So that sounds it's really inspiring, basically, you know, what you've done. And I'm sure that there's lots of people that, you know, are considering career changing, or you know, actually following things that they were really good at, or that they were naturally like born to do.
Yeah, I
And
think that's the thing,
I'm,
really, doing the thing that you really love. Because if you really love it, you're going to put the hours in. You know, you're going to try hard. And even when I'm not doing anything, I do this, and people say, "Oh, you're still working," but it's not, because it was kind of a hobby that's become work. So it's almost like if it's something you know really into and you really enjoy, you only get one life, give it a go. You know, it might fail, it might not, but at least you think, right, I tried my best, I give it a go. So but yeah, obviously the financial situation is the thing that stops a lot of people going for the thing they love doing. And so I always recommend, if you could try and do the two together, don't just leave your job and think, I'm going to go off and do that. If there's a way of working two side by side until the other one takes over more than the other one, then you're in a good position, really. I think that's the way to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. There's it's always good to have that safety net, isn't it? And but also to have that freedom to play around and not worry about having your bills paid for, isn't it? But I think you touched something that really important, which is like, if you really love something, it really doesn't matter. You shouldn't be super focused on like the outcomes and the monetary reward at first, because sometimes that's not going to come with your first couple of projects, or even for a very long time.
Yeah, that's very true.
Also, so yeah, it's important that you keep doing what you're doing, and you keep, if it's a hobby, go for it, isn't it? I guess I was going to ask you as well, do you think that having creative confidence as such, that it does play a part in people's success, so that if people are a bit more introvert, or that or even scared to try new things, does that kind of like hinder where they go?
I think so. I think well, when I started doing it, I was learning the software for myself and setting my own projects. So it didn't matter what they were, or no one was going to criticize my work, because I was just in a learning zone. So I think too many people criticize their own work too much, and then they don't show anyone, or I can't send my work out to clients, and it's not good enough yet. And I mean, there is an element of wait until you kind of know what you're doing a little bit before you actually approach the outside world. But art is subjective, design is subjective. What some people like, others don't. So don't hold yourself back because you think, oh, no one's going to like it, or I'm not good enough at this. And that does happen. And also, you're never going to see these people again anyway, or you're going to email these people your work, and it doesn't matter if I just sent my stuff to anyone, and joined anything I could and entered anything I could, and in the end, your work if your work's good, whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, or whatever, it will float to the top and people will see it. But you've got to get it out there, so you can't just hold on to it. Social media, tagging the right people, emailing once a month, not an email that's got images in the email but embedded in it. Make everything easy for the person. Don't write them really long essays, just this is my work, what do you think? So you've got to be confident in selling your work, even if you don't feel that way. You kind of got to do it if that's what you want to do. Otherwise no one will see it, and then that'll be that, really.
Exactly. Yeah. And I guess to sell the work, there are all these like different channels, as you mentioned, but you need to be confident to putting yourself out there, isn't it? And that takes resilience, and you build that up through a lot of no's, which everyone gets in every industry. But I guess when it's a creative output, it does sometimes feel a bit personal because you're so attached to it. But I guess it's all part of being in this world. I was going to ask, is there any kind of time where you felt like you've been put off track your path? So what made you go into graphic design, for instance?
Basically, when I left uni, I had to pay my rent, and trying to be an illustrator straight away out of uni and stay. I was living in Kingston upon Thames, and it's really expensive there. So staying in rented accommodation and trying to be the illustrator straight out of uni, I had to get a part-time job, which was Tesco's, which ended up being a full-time job. And then I just couldn't bear it any longer. And I just thought, I cannot do this anymore. So I knew that graphics was, closely linked. So I bought myself a Mac, and then quickly taught myself Quark Express at the time, and Photoshop. And then, and I went off in that direction, which led me to the FT, which led me to illustration, and then came back full round. So, I wonder, that put me off track of being an illustrator at the time, but it might have brought me back on the right track, because if I'd tried to be an illustrator, I think I would have just died a death and failed. And so being a graphic designer, you kept a bit of the illustration in there with you, because there's always a need for something. And so I was off track, but I kind of see it as a full circle, because I wanted to be a model maker when I was in uni, 3D model maker, and that's such a faff, having to build stuff and photograph it. And 20 odd years ago, that wasn't really an option for me. So I've come full circle, and now I'm a model maker, but in the virtual world. So I kind of feel like I've ended up where I should be. And I had my degree show in the Coningsby Gallery, which is in Tottenham, on Tottenham Street. And that was always the agency I wanted to be with, WR. And they were the ones I always used for my work when I was commissioning. And then they kept saying no to my work. And then eventually they did say yes. So now I'm actually part of the agency that I wanted to be with right from the beginning. So so it all feels like it's come full circle. Even if it did go off track, it's, I've learned a lot on the way.
Absolutely. And I guess, having the art direction skills, as you mentioned, and the storytelling, kind of abilities that you've developed over 20 years doing communication, visual communication and graphic design, really kind of feed into your style of illustration and really lend to it. I was going to ask, are there any kind of other creative activities that you pursue on your as a hobby now? Any kind of any tips to nourish your creativity when you're feeling low on the juices?
Well, I've just renovated a house, so that kind of was a little bit, it was like a 3D in the real. It's tricky, because when I'm not working, my kind of hobby is trying to get better at the software. So I tend to then play with it, the animation side, or set myself a little project around Christmas time, Christmas and Valentine's, everyone posts an image on Instagram. So I think, well, I'm going to do my own little thing. So I kind of do that, but I'll make anything if I get the opportunity, to be honest. Making snowmen, I used to like sculpting strange creatures in snow. Pumpkin carving, I did a Donald Trump one, that was really good. And then I got really into that. Sewing, don't get time to do it. I'll literally, whatever it is. And I've got 2 daughters, so one of them's quite creative, and she likes baking, so we often kind of do that together. Well, I just eat it, really, but it's tricky. I'll just try anything and do anything, but the one thing that I have got into, which is tricky at the minute, is the whole AI thing, Mid-Journey, which is almost like a dirty secret because a lot of people don't like it, obviously obvious reasons, that you literally type in a few words and out pops something that could take me weeks to build, which is very scary. So it's so that did become a little bit of a hobby. I was literally thinking, wow, this is great, I'm typing my words, but you can't really use it because of copyright issues, and it scrapes everything from the internet and makes it up from other people's work. So but that's an interesting thing. So I'm kind of keeping a track on that and dabbling in that as when I've got the odd 5 minutes, but that's another scary area coming out.
It It is, but as you said, yeah, there's lots of copyright issues, and also as they grab people's images, so it's kind of like, I don't know, it's really scary, but I don't think it will ever replace a human illustration.
No, hopefully not.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
I don't know, this could be famous last words, but yeah, we'll see. Have you got any tips or advice for people who want to, break into the creative industry?
Oh gosh. In which way creative? Like illustration or design, graphics?
Any kind of create, people who are essentially struggling to with the job they have. Maybe they want to change careers. They're like they haven't been able to find a job that pays enough to cover their bills, and they want to get into the industry so that they can, try and make money off their creative skills.
I think set aside time. When I started using Cinema 4D every day, I made sure I did something every day. Otherwise, if you don't, you lose the ability. So if they want to get into something, if it's a design thing, or you're going to need to know how to use software. So teach yourself, or on YouTube, there's loads and loads of stuff now. You can go on a course, but they cost a lot of money. But there's plenty of stuff out there. So I would say in your spare time, if it's design or illustration, then just research the net, look at things you like, if learn the software, and don't get hung up on the end goal. Just because some people go, oh, I'm never going to get there because this is so hard to learn, I'm never going to do it. I would just take each day as it comes and just learn a bit each day, and then before you know it, you've created a lot of work for a portfolio or whatever, and then you think, actually now I can actually go and do something. So I think to ease into it, don't think about the end goal that it's going to lead to a job. Just start doing what you enjoy doing and learning all the time. That's the thing. It's just sucking up all the information and the things that you like the look of, and why do you like the look of that, and try and break that down. Study magazine covers. If it's magazines you like, you want to illustrate, then try illustrating your own one. Pick a Guardian and think, well, this is what I would have done. Yeah, just don't worry about showing it to anyone to start with. Just start. Yeah, it's tricky when you've got a job as well, but just in little bites, a little bit every day, it works that way, I think.
That's great advice. Yeah, just keep at it, isn't it? Even if it's like tiny amounts every day, you will chip. Just establish small goals as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so great. And thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for being my guest. It's been a real pleasure. I'd also like to thank everyone who watched the video. I'm always looking for more ways of being creatively confident myself, so hit me up on my socials with any questions, or if you'd like to connect that way. Thank you so much, and until the next one.